He attended an alien wedding and somehow became the king's daughter's husband. The sky was a deep violet, streaked with iridescent bands of green and gold that shimmered like ribbons of light. Towering crystal structures rose from the ground, reflecting the colors of the sky in a dazzling display. Floating platforms drifted lazily in the air, each covered with gardens that seemed to defy gravity. The air itself was alive with the soft hum of alien energy, a vibration that Ethan could feel in his chest. He adjusted the collar of his exploration suit, feeling the strange thrill of being a human visitor in the court of a civilization far older and more advanced than his own. Ethan had been chosen by humanity to attend the Galactic Cultural Summit, a rare gathering where representatives of various species exchanged knowledge, art, and traditions. Yet, the invitation he now held in his hand was different. It was not for the summit itself, but for a personal event, the wedding of the king's only daughter. Ethan blinked at the elegant scroll, written in both symbols and a careful English translation. You are requested to attend as an honored guest. Your presence will bring luck and prosperity to our union. It seemed like a formality, a polite gesture to include a human among the many distinguished alien guests. Yet, as he stepped onto the polished platform that served as the city's main square, he realized the grandeur of the event was far beyond anything he could have imagined. The plaza was packed with beings of all shapes and sizes. Some had multiple limbs, others had skin that glowed faintly in shifting colors. Wings fluttered overhead, sending gentle breezes across the crowd. Ethan's human eyes widened as a parade of luminescent creatures glided down the center, their bodies trailing streams of sparkling light. Music filled the air, though it was unlike any music Ethan had heard before. It was both melody and emotion, a sound that seemed to communicate feelings directly to the listener's mind. At the center of the plaza, a raised platform had been constructed. Two figures stood there, holding hands. The bride, Princess Lyra, radiated a presence that was both commanding and graceful. Her skin was a soft silver blue, her eyes deep and expressive. Her long hair floated around her head as if suspended by its own weight, and she wore a gown of shifting colors, a living fabric that reacted to her mood and the light around her. Beside her was the groom, an alien from another noble house, tall and slender, adorned in ceremonial armor that shimmered like liquid metal. Ethan tried to take everything in without drawing attention to himself. He had been warned that the aliens were extremely observant of gestures, expressions, and even thoughts. Humans were rare here, and any misstep could cause offense. He took a careful step forward, glancing at the crowd. Every being seemed to have a role, a specific place, and an unspoken order that Ethan could not yet understand. A sudden murmur ran through the crowd. Ethan turned to see a small ceremonial artifact, a crystalline orb that hovered in midair as part of the wedding ritual, slipping from its stand. The wind, or perhaps the alien energy in the plaza, was pulling it downward. Time seemed to slow as the orb fell, spinning toward the ground. The alien attendants froze, their multiple eyes widening in panic. Without thinking, Ethan lunged forward. His human reflexes were faster than the careful, measured movements of the aliens. He caught the orb just before it hit the platform, cradling it in his hands. The crowd gasped, then erupted into cheers. Ethan felt a flush of relief and embarrassment. He was not prepared for what came next. The king, seated on a throne of polished crystal, rose with a voice that carried across the entire plaza. Though the words were alien, the translation appeared in Ethan's suit display almost instantly. By tradition, the one who honors the wedding most shall be joined in marriage with my daughter. You, human, have saved the ceremony. You are now her chosen husband. Ethan froze. He stared at the king, then at Princess Lyra. Her eyes were wide, a mixture of surprise and something he could not yet identify. The crowd waited, silent now, all attention on him. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Lyra's gaze met his, sharp and assessing. She tilted her head slightly, and for a moment the world seemed to narrow down to the two of them. She had not expected this. Ethan had not expected this. The tradition was so strange, so alien, that it felt like a story from another galaxy. And yet, it was real. A ripple of laughter, polite but curious, ran through the crowd. Ethan took a deep breath, forcing his mind to focus. He could not flee, could not deny the king in front of so many witnesses. His human heart raced, and he felt every pulse as if it were amplified by the alien energy around him. I don't understand," he said finally, his voice cracking slightly. "I was just helping. I didn't mean—" The king raised a hand, silencing him. The translation appeared instantly in Ethan's suit display. "Intent does not matter, tradition does. You are chosen. Accept it and honor our customs or face exile from this court." Ethan swallowed hard. Exile was not merely a social penalty. It could mean losing access to the planet entirely and possibly more. He forced himself to nod. I will honor your tradition," he said. The words felt strange, heavy, and binding. He had never felt so aware of his human fragility, standing in a culture where every action had centuries of meaning. Lyra stepped forward, her expression softening. "Human," she said, her voice clear in the translation, "this is unexpected. But perhaps it will be interesting." There was a spark of amusement in her eyes, and for the first time, Ethan felt a small glimmer of hope. Perhaps this would not be entirely disastrous. The ceremony resumed, though with a noticeable shift. Guests whispered and pointed, fascinated by the human who had inadvertently become part of royal tradition. Ethan followed the ritual as best as he could, mimicking the gestures of other participants and holding the orb as instructed. He felt awkward and clumsy, but his human intuition guided him where his understanding faltered. After what felt like hours, the initial chaos of the wedding subsided. Ethan found a quiet moment to stand beside Lyra, who studied him with an intensity that was both intimidating and curious. "You are very different from what I expected," she said. Ethan managed a nervous smile. "I suppose humans are different." Lyra tilted her head, considering him. Different can be useful. He did not know whether to be relieved or worried by her words. He realized that surviving the first day was only the beginning. The real challenge would be understanding this alien world, its rules, and the expectations now placed upon him, not just as a guest, but as the future partner of a princess. The sun, or what passed for a sun on this alien planet, began to set, casting long shadows across the crystalline plaza. The floating gardens glowed in the evening light, illuminating the delicate architecture and the multitude of alien faces turned toward them. Ethan felt a strange mixture of awe and apprehension. He had crossed galaxies to explore the unknown, to represent humanity among the stars. Yet, nothing had prepared him for becoming part of an alien wedding, caught in a tradition older than most human civilizations. He glanced at Lyra once more, who gave him a faint nod, as if acknowledging that he had survived the first trial. Ethan Carter, human explorer, had stepped into a world entirely alien, yet he could feel something stirring deep inside, a determination, a spark of courage, and the knowledge that humans had a unique place in this universe. He did not know what lay ahead, but for the first time, he understood that being human could be more powerful than he had ever imagined. The night deepened, and lanterns made of glowing crystals floated into the air, casting ethereal light across the plaza. The music changed, a soft, melodic tone that felt like it was speaking directly to the heart. Ethan took a deep breath, bracing himself for whatever came next. This was only the beginning. The human who attended an alien wedding had just begun a journey that would challenge every expectation, not just of him, but of all who believed humans were ordinary. And somewhere, deep in the crowd, Ethan sensed the weight of destiny pressing gently but insistently against him. The princess's gaze, the king's decree, and the unyielding curiosity of a human mind all converged. Tomorrow, the real trials would begin. Tonight, he survived, but the universe had plans that were far larger than a single wedding, and far more extraordinary than anything Ethan had ever dreamed. The morning after the wedding, Ethan woke to a world that seemed both familiar and impossibly strange. The sky was painted in soft shades of turquoise and gold, the crystal towers reflecting the dawn light like countless tiny suns. Floating gardens drifted gently in the air, their plants releasing faint glows as if greeting the day. Ethan stepped out of the guest quarters provided by the palace, taking a careful breath of the alien air. His lungs, human and unadapted, welcomed the subtle energy hum that vibrated through the atmosphere. He was not alone. Princess Lyra stood nearby, her silver-blue skin shimmering in the morning light. She had donned a robe of translucent fibers, a simple garment by alien standards, yet it radiated elegance and quiet authority. Her eyes studied him, sharp and curious, though not unkindly. "You slept well," she said, her voice carrying across the terrace, translated instantly by his suit. "You survived the first night in our city. That is more than most humans manage." Ethan chuckled nervously. "I guess the excitement kept me awake half the night. And the other half, thinking about this tradition you have, it's overwhelming," Lyra nodded. "It is meant to be. It tests courage, adaptability, and the ability to act when necessary. You have passed the first test by instinct alone, but instinct is not enough." Ethan frowned. "You mean there's more?" "Of course," Lyra said, tilting her head. "Being chosen is not merely ceremonial. There are responsibilities, expectations, and trials. You must learn our ways if you are to honor the bond created by the ceremony. Otherwise, this union cannot continue." Ethan felt a shiver of apprehension. He had prepared for diplomacy, for language barriers, for cultural misunderstandings, but he had never imagined being personally tested by alien customs. Yet he also felt the familiar spark of human determination. He had survived space travel, navigated unknown planets, and represented humanity among beings far more advanced. Perhaps, he thought, he could rise to this challenge as well. Lyra led him through the palace halls, vast corridors carved from crystal and metal, glowing softly as if alive. The walls were adorned with alien symbols, shifting and shimmering in patterns that Ethan could not yet decipher. Servants with multiple arms moved gracefully, attending to the needs of the palace without disturbing its quiet dignity. The humans among the attendants were rare, often guides or translators, their faces marked by awe at the grandeur surrounding them. "You will begin with learning our customs," Lyra explained as they walked. "There are gestures, words, even thoughts that carry meaning here. You must understand them all or risk offending not just me but the court and the people." Ethan nodded. "Where do we start?" Lyra stopped in front of a large hall, its entrance guarded by statues that seemed to watch their every move. "The first trial is comprehension. You will witness a series of ceremonial demonstrations and must respond appropriately. Observing is not enough. You must participate. Our ancestors believed that true understanding comes through action." The hall was filled with beings from different worlds, performing intricate rituals. Some wove patterns of light in the air, others sang with voices that resonated directly in the mind. Ethan watched, trying to absorb the rhythm, the meaning, the intention behind each movement. When a guide approached him, indicating that it was his turn, he felt a pang of fear. His first instinct was hesitation, but then he remembered how he had saved the ceremonial orb the day before. He could do this too. His first task was to replicate a gesture of greeting. Simple in theory. Extend one arm, place the other hand over the chest, and tilt the head at a precise angle. Yet the timing, the pressure of the hand, the subtle movements of the fingers, all carried nuanced meaning. One wrong motion could signal disrespect or submission. Ethan concentrated, observing the others, then mirrored the movement. When he completed it, Lyra gave a subtle nod. It was correct. The next trial was more complicated. He had to participate in a ritual exchange of gifts, a practice symbolizing trust and understanding. The objects were strange. Crystal orbs containing liquid light, small plants that hummed softly, and objects that emitted patterns of sound. Ethan had to choose the right gift, present it with the correct gestures, and respond to the recipient's signals. He faltered at first, nearly offering a glowing seed incorrectly, but he corrected himself mid-motion, drawing a quiet murmur of approval from the audience. As the morning passed, Ethan faced task after task, learning a song of light, arranging floating symbols in precise sequences, and answering riddles posed by the royal advisors. Each challenge tested not just memory and observation, but creativity, intuition, and courage. He realized that humans had an advantage here. Where aliens relied on repetition and protocol, humans could improvise, adapt, and see solutions that were not obvious. By midday, sweat dampened his brow. Lyra watched silently, noting each success and mistake. She approached him, her voice calm but firm. "You are unusual. Most humans would fail quickly, overwhelmed by the complexity. Yet you adapt. You see connections others do not. That is promising." Ethan smiled faintly. "Thanks. I guess humans are good at thinking on their feet." Lyra raised an eyebrow. "Good thinking is not enough. You must also understand emotion, intention, and consequence. Our rituals are not merely technical. They are social, moral, and spiritual tests. You must prove that you can grasp all three." The afternoon brought a new challenge. A neighboring alien faction, known for their rivalry with the king's house, had been invited to observe the ceremonies. Their representatives, tall and angular with piercing eyes, watched Ethan closely, clearly skeptical of a human taking such a central role. Ethan felt their scrutiny, a silent challenge, and he knew that his performance would be judged not just by the princess, but by the wider court. The trial was to mediate a ceremonial dispute between two factions of advisors. Normally, this task would be given to an experienced alien diplomat, one trained in subtle negotiation for decades. Ethan, with no experience in alien law or politics, was expected to intervene. He took a deep breath and relied on human instinct. He listened carefully, observed the patterns of speech and gesture, and identified the source of the disagreement, a misunderstanding about the symbolic meaning of a gift. Using simple, logical reasoning and empathy, he proposed a solution that preserved the intentions of both sides. The room fell silent. For a moment, no one moved, as if they were trying to comprehend how a human could solve a problem that had stumped alien diplomats for centuries. Then, slowly, Lyra nodded. The advisors bowed in acknowledgement. A ripple of astonished murmurs spread through the hall. Ethan felt a surge of pride mixed with relief. He realized that humans had a special quality in situations like this: the ability to think differently, to approach problems without the constraints of tradition, while still respecting it. That difference, he sensed, was exactly what the princess and her court had been testing. The final trial of the day involved a ceremonial dance, one that represented harmony and unity among all species present. Ethan had watched others perform flawlessly, their bodies moving in ways that seemed impossible for humans. He had no choice but to follow, mirroring their movements as best as he could. He stumbled several times, his limbs unaccustomed to the intricate motions, but he did not give up. Each time he corrected himself, the dance grew smoother. By the end of the ceremony, Ethan was exhausted. His muscles ached, his mind buzzed, yet he felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had not only survived the trials but had impressed observers in ways that no one expected. Lyra approached him, her expression a mixture of curiosity, respect, and something softer he could not yet define. "You are more capable than I anticipated," she said. "Your mind is not bound by fear or convention. That is a rare trait even among our people. You may adapt to our world if you are willing to continue learning." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He did not fully understand what lay ahead, but he knew he could not retreat. Humans had always survived by curiosity, courage, and adaptability. He would do the same here. As the day drew to a close, the palace gardens glowed under the twin moons rising in the sky. Guests departed to private quarters, leaving Ethan and Lyra walking along a terrace overlooking the city. The floating gardens shimmered, casting soft light onto the crystal towers below. "I have questions," Ethan said, breaking the comfortable silence, "about the tradition, about you, and about what it means to be chosen in your world." Lyra smiled faintly. "You will learn, slowly. Our ways are not meant to be understood in a day. But there is one truth I can tell you now. Humans are unusual. You do not follow the same paths as other species. That can be powerful if you use it wisely." Ethan felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges he could not yet imagine. Yet for the first time, he felt a deep connection to this alien world, not as a visitor, but as someone who might truly belong. As they returned to the palace, Ethan caught sight of the neighboring faction, watching him with narrowed eyes. He realized that his trials had not only been for tradition's sake, but also as a test of human worthiness in the eyes of all who witnessed him. The stakes were higher than he had thought. Success would not only secure his position, but also demonstrate humanity's potential across the galaxy. Ethan Carter, human explorer, had begun the second day of an alien trial unlike any challenge he had faced before. He had survived instinct, adaptation, and intellect. Yet he knew that the real tests were still to come, understanding alien emotions, navigating court politics, and proving that a human could honor the bond created by an ancient and complex tradition. The night settled over the Crystal City, and Ethan allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. Humans had always been underestimated in the cosmos. Here, in the heart of an alien palace, he felt the truth of his people's potential. He was not just surviving. He was demonstrating that humanity had qualities even advanced civilizations could respect. And somewhere in the soft glow of the palace gardens, he sensed that Lyra, the princess who had seemed so distant and reserved, had begun to see those qualities too. Tomorrow, the next trials would begin, and Ethan knew he would face them with the courage, intelligence, and curiosity that had brought him this far. In this alien world, he was still human. But that humanity, he realized, could shine brighter than any crystal tower, any floating garden, or any ritual perfected over centuries. Ethan did not sleep well that night. The palace was quiet, yet his mind refused to rest. Images of the day's trials replayed again and again, alien faces watching him, Lyra's thoughtful gaze, and the cold, judging eyes of the rival faction. He understood now that his presence here was no longer a curiosity. It was a challenge to traditions, power, and long-standing beliefs. When morning came, the sky was darker than usual, clouds of deep blue drifting slowly across the horizon. The crystal towers reflected the muted light, and the city felt tense, as if it sensed something approaching. Ethan stepped onto the balcony and noticed increased movement below. Guards in ceremonial armor took positions along bridges and platforms. Something was happening. Lyra arrived soon after, her expression serious. "Today will not be like the others," she said. "The rival house has formally challenged your place here." Ethan stiffened. "Challenged how?" "They claim that tradition was misinterpreted," Lyra replied. "They believe a human cannot fulfill the deeper obligations of the bond. To prove their claim, they have invoked an ancient rite, the trial of worth." Ethan let out a slow breath. "Let me guess, it's dangerous." Lyra gave a small, honest nod. "Yes, and public." The entire court will watch. If you fail, you will not only be removed as my chosen partner, but humanity standing here will suffer." Ethan felt the weight of that settle into his chest. This was no longer just about him. He represented Earth, every human who might one day walk among the stars. Walking away was not an option. "I'll do it," he said quietly. Lyra studied him for a long moment. "You do not hesitate." "Humans don't always know when they're outmatched," Ethan replied. "We just know when something matters." The trial of worth took place in the open ring, a vast circular platform suspended high above the city. Beneath it, nothing but air and drifting light. Ancient symbols glowed along the ring's edge, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. Alien nobles gathered on floating tiers around the platform, their attention fixed on the center. Ethan stood alone in the ring, his suit adjusted for minimal assistance. This was intentional. The rival faction wanted no advantage, no technology to excuse his success. Across from him stood three challengers, representatives of the rival house. They were tall, sharp-featured, and confident, their posture calm in a way that felt practiced and superior. A deep voice echoed across the ring. "The trial of worth shall begin. The human shall face three challenges: endurance, judgment, and unity. These tests have broken many. Let the galaxy witness truth." The first challenge began without warning. The platform shifted beneath Ethan's feet, sections rising and falling in unpredictable patterns. Gravity fluctuated, pulling and releasing in waves. The alien challengers moved with grace, clearly adapted to such conditions. Ethan stumbled at first, barely keeping his balance. He focused on his breathing. Humans had trained for chaos, spacewalks, broken ships, unpredictable environments. He bent his knees, adjusted his stance, and stopped fighting the movement. Instead, he flowed with it, reacting rather than resisting. The crowd murmured as Ethan stayed upright longer than expected. One challenger slipped briefly, clearly surprised. Ethan gritted his teeth as the strain built in his legs, sweat forming along his brow. When the platform finally stilled, he remained standing. The voice spoke again. Endurance acknowledged. Ethan barely had time to recover before the second challenge began. A holographic projection formed around the ring, showing a simulated crisis. Two alien settlements were in danger due to an energy imbalance. Saving one would doom the other. The challengers were asked to decide quickly. The aliens responded with calculations, probabilities, and historical precedent. They chose the settlement with higher political value. Ethan listened, then stepped forward. "There's another option," he said. The voice paused. "Explain." Ethan pointed to the energy flow lines. "You're treating this as a fixed system. Humans don't. We reroute the flow temporarily, stabilize both settlements long enough to evacuate the weaker one. It's risky, but it saves lives." The simulation adjusted, running his solution. The result was unstable but successful. More lives survived than in the challenger's plan. Silence followed. The rival representatives stared at the projection, unsettled. They had chosen efficiency. Ethan had chosen people. "Judgment acknowledged," the voice declared. Lyra felt her breath catch. She had known humans valued emotion, but seeing it applied so decisively changed something inside her. The third challenge began slowly. Lights dimmed and the ring expanded. Ethan found himself surrounded by projections of different species, each isolated, each struggling. The challenge was not physical, it was relational. "Unity," the voice said. "Bring them together." The challengers began issuing commands, trying to align the projections through authority and logic. The figures resisted, fragmented by fear and mistrust. Ethan hesitated, then removed his helmet. The air was safe, but the gesture shocked the crowd. Exposed, vulnerable, human. He spoke not loudly but clearly. "I don't know your customs, I don't share your biology, but I know what it's like to be afraid and alone. Humans learned long ago that we survive together or not at all." He walked among the projections, not directing them but listening. adjusting, bridging misunderstandings with simple language and shared goals. Slowly, the figures moved closer. Their light patterns began to synchronize. The ring glowed brighter as unity formed, not forced, but chosen. The voice was silent for several long seconds. Then unity acknowledged. The open ring erupted in sound. Not cheers, but something deeper, respect. Ethan replaced his helmet, his hands trembling slightly. He had done it, not perfectly, not elegantly, but honestly. The rival faction withdrew in silence. Their challenge had failed. Lyra stepped into the ring, her eyes bright. "You faced what many of my people fear," she said softly, "and you did so as yourself." Ethan gave a tired smile. "That's all I had." The king rose from his throne. "Let it be known," he declared, "that the human has met the trial of worth, not by abandoning his nature but by embracing it. Humanity has shown strength not measured in force but in spirit." That night the city felt different, lighter. Conversations shifted. Where once humans were spoken of cautiously, now there was curiosity, respect. Ethan walked the gardens alone for a while, letting the cool air calm his racing thoughts. Lyra joined him. "You changed how they see your people," she said. Ethan looked out over the glowing city. "I didn't plan to, I just did what felt right," she nodded. "That may be the most alien thing about humans." Above them, the stars burned steadily. Ethan felt exhaustion settle into his bones, but also purpose. The final trial still awaited, but now he knew something important. Humanity did not need to imitate the galaxy to belong in it. The palace was alive with anticipation. Lanterns made of floating crystals glimmered in the soft light of the twin moons, casting intricate patterns across the polished floors. Beings of countless shapes and colors moved through the halls, preparing for the final ritual. The air thrummed with energy, a mixture of excitement and tension that Ethan could feel in his chest. This was it, the ultimate test. The one that would determine whether he could truly honor the bond he had been thrust into at the alien wedding. Ethan adjusted the collar of his suit and looked around. He had learned much over the past days, the gestures, the rituals, and even the subtle language of thought that aliens used to communicate. Yet despite all the preparation, he felt a flutter of nerves. This final challenge was unlike anything he had faced before. It was not just ceremonial, it was a test of creativity, courage, and the ability to see solutions where none seemed possible. Princess Lyra approached him, her expression calm yet unreadable. "Today is the final trial," she said, her voice translated instantly into his suit. "It will require you to combine everything you have learned: observation, intuition, understanding of emotion, and your own human ingenuity. Fail, and the consequences are severe. Succeed, and you will earn your place beside me, not merely by tradition but by merit." Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath. "I understand, I'll do my best." Lyra's eyes softened and she gave a small nod. "That is all I ask. Do not rely solely on what you know. Trust your instincts as you did on the first day." The chamber for the ritual was enormous, a circular hall with walls that shimmered with moving patterns of light. In the center floated a complex structure of crystalline spires, connected by beams of energy that pulsed with a steady rhythm. At the base of the structure was a large sphere of light, rotating slowly and casting prismatic reflections across the room. This, Ethan realized, was the focus of the trial. The task would be to interact with it in a way that demonstrated understanding and skill. The king's voice echoed across the hall. "Human, approach. Show us what it means to honor tradition and embody ingenuity." Ethan stepped forward cautiously. The sphere responded to movement, shifting slightly as he moved closer. He could feel a subtle vibration, almost as if it were alive, testing him. Around him, the alien audience held their breath, eyes wide and focused. Lyra whispered beside him, "It will not respond to force. You must find the pattern, the rhythm, and the logic within it. Only then will it accept your guidance." Ethan studied the sphere, noticing the way the light reflected and refracted. Unlike the aliens who seemed to approach it with learned gestures, he allowed himself to think freely. He observed, he experimented, and he relied on his intuition. After a few moments, he realized that the sphere responded not to mimicry, but to original solutions that respected its internal logic. He reached out and adjusted a beam of light, watching how it interacted with the crystalline spires. Then he shifted another, aligning patterns until the beams formed a harmonious sequence. The sphere pulsed brighter, the energy flowing smoothly through the structure. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Ethan realized that the sphere was reacting to creativity and adaptive thinking, something humans excelled at naturally. One of the alien advisors stepped forward, skeptical. The human has never been trained for this ritual. He cannot succeed. Ethan smiled faintly, concentrating harder. Training is not always what matters, he thought aloud. Sometimes understanding and ingenuity count more. The beams of light shifted again as he made subtle adjustments. The structure responded, completing a dazzling display of energy that bathed the chamber in shimmering light. The sphere stabilized, floating serenely as the patterns harmonized perfectly. Silence followed, then a wave of applause and murmurs of astonishment swept through the audience. The king rose, his expression solemn yet impressed. "Human," he said, his voice echoing with authority, "you have not only honored tradition but expanded it. You have demonstrated understanding, creativity, and courage. You are worthy of standing beside my daughter." Ethan exhaled, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. He had succeeded not by following instructions blindly, but by thinking, observing, and trusting his human instincts. Lyra approached, her eyes glowing softly with approval. "You have done well," she said, "more than well. You have shown that a human can adapt and excel in ways even we did not expect." Ethan smiled, feeling both relief and pride. "Thank you. I never imagined I could do something like this." Lyra's smile widened slightly. "Perhaps you underestimated yourself, but I did not. I saw potential, even when others doubted. You have proven them wrong." The ceremony concluded with the audience celebrating the union, not merely as a tradition fulfilled, but as a testament to the strength and uniqueness of humanity. Ethan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had crossed galaxies, survived challenges no human had faced, and now stood recognized as capable, worthy, and respected in an alien world. Later, as the celebration continued, Ethan and Lyra walked along a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The floating gardens glowed under the twin moons, casting soft light on the crystalline city. Ethan could see beings of every shape and color moving through the terraces below, their faces reflecting awe and admiration. "You have changed how they see humans," Lyra said quietly. "Not just in my eyes, but in the eyes of everyone here. They will remember this day for centuries." Ethan felt a mixture of pride and humility. "I only did what any human might do, try, adapt, and keep going. I guess that's enough sometimes." Lyra looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "Enough? No, extraordinary. Humans are capable of more than most of us imagined. You have reminded us that courage and creativity are not bound by species." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth he had not expected. He had come to this planet as an explorer, an observer of alien cultures. He had not anticipated becoming part of one, or earning respect in a way that transcended tradition. Yet here he was, standing beside a princess who now looked at him with admiration and something more, a recognition of his character, his perseverance, and his human ingenuity. The night air was filled with music, soft and resonant, flowing not just through the ears but into the heart. Ethan listened, feeling the vibrations in his chest, and he realized that this world, so alien and beautiful, had become a place where humans could shine. He could make a difference, not through strength or technology alone, but through qualities intrinsic to humanity: courage, adaptability, empathy, and the willingness to act when needed. As they returned to the palace, Ethan noticed the neighboring alien faction, the ones who had doubted him. Their faces now held expressions of respect, even admiration. They whispered among themselves, clearly impressed by a human who had succeeded where many alien advisors had hesitated. Ethan realized that his journey was not merely personal, it was symbolic. Humans, underestimated for centuries by more advanced civilizations, could rise to challenges and prove their worth. Lyra turned to him as they entered the grand hall. You have not only earned your place here, but you have also shown that humans can be leaders, innovators, and allies. That is no small achievement. Ethan shook his head modestly. I just did what I thought was right. I followed instinct, learned as quickly as I could, and tried not to fail. Lyra laughed softly, a sound that made him smile. Sometimes trying is enough. Sometimes it is everything. And today you have done more than try. The king approached, his presence commanding yet warm. Human, you have proven yourself worthy. You honor our traditions, respect our people, and demonstrate qualities that are rare, even among our most capable citizens. By right of merit, not mere ceremony, you are accepted as the companion of my daughter. Let this union be a symbol of collaboration, respect, and the limitless potential of our peoples. Ethan bowed respectfully. I am honored. I will do my best to honor this bond, the traditions, and the trust you have placed in me. The crowd erupted into applause. Aliens of all species, from dignitaries to common citizens, celebrated not only the wedding, but the extraordinary presence of a human who had navigated an impossible trial and emerged victorious. Ethan felt a profound sense of pride, not arrogance, but the quiet satisfaction of accomplishment. He had faced the unknown, relied on his human qualities, and earned respect in a world that had seemed beyond reach. Lyra joined him, her hand brushing against his in a gesture of connection. You have exceeded my expectations, and perhaps exceeded your own. Ethan looked at her, realizing that their bond was now rooted in mutual respect and shared experience. This was no longer about tradition alone. It was about recognition, understanding, and the promise of what humans and aliens could achieve together. As the celebrations continued late into the night, Ethan walked through the palace gardens with Lyra by his side. The floating lights reflected in their eyes, and he felt a quiet joy, a sense of belonging he had never anticipated. Humans were far from home, but here, in the heart of an alien world, they could shine brighter than crystal towers, wiser than ancient rituals, and braver than anyone had imagined. Ethan Carter, human explorer, had begun as a visitor. He had become a participant, a partner, and a symbol of humanity's potential. And as he looked out at the glowing city and the countless beings celebrating, he knew this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of unknown challenges, and humanity had a place among the stars, not just surviving but thriving, inspiring, and achieving greatness. In that moment, under the twin moons, amidst the shimmering gardens and crystal towers, Ethan understood something simple yet profound. Being human was not a limitation, it was a strength. And with that strength he could face any future, no matter how alien or impossible it seemed. The night deepened, and the palace continued to glow with life. Ethan felt a quiet certainty, a knowledge that humans could rise to challenges, build bonds across worlds, and leave a mark on civilizations far older and more advanced than their own. This wedding, this trial, and this journey were a testament not only to him, but to all of humanity. And somewhere in the softly glowing gardens, Princess Lyra smiled, recognizing that the human beside her had proven himself worthy, not by accident, but by courage, creativity, and heart. He attended an alien wedding, and somehow became the king's daughter's husband.